Welcome to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. My name is Dr. Sanj Mohanta. We're going to learn about clinical management, practice management, and the emotional management of dentistry. Let's learn how to be happier in dentistry. Let's go. So, welcome to the pod, Gurtej. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, I met Gurtej last year on Instagram, and then we got to meet in person. And at first I was like, Mr. Money Canada, what's that about? And then I met you in person. I was like, oh my gosh, you're the nicest guy. I have to have you on the pod. So Gurtej, tell us a bit about your story.
Before that, thanks for having me. I've actually thought about changing the name because I realized it maybe isn't a good name to have. I thought it portrays what I do very well, which is I tell people or educate them on money and obviously advise them. But I'm learning now that it comes across the wrong way, so I might just switch my name. But background on myself, I'm originally from BC, born and raised in a city called Delta, which, as we were mentioning, it's like the Burlington of Ontario, but in BC.
Cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good demographic, very, diversified in terms of culture and ethnicities, which is nice. But I spent my whole life there. I moved into the house that we lived in up until very recently when I was 2, and we stayed there till I was, like 25, 26. So my whole life was at that house. And just, it was me, my brother, and my mom. My mom's a single mom. I haven't really had a relationship with my dad since I was, I think, 6. And thank goodness, because my mom had the courage to divorce him, and for our sake. So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, stayed there my whole life. I went to school at UBC, but I actually spent 1 year in Ontario, at the University of Windsor.
Oh.
So yeah, Ontario has a very warm spot in my heart, as cold as it is, especially Windsor, Toronto, because I had a lot of friends from here. And then when I went to Windsor, I essentially, the roommates I had are my friends for life now. One of them actually does all the marketing for me and my companies. And then the other one is just like a very good friend. And so, yeah, Ontario's like a second home to me.
Oh, so you have work besties.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, pretty much my best friend is the one who was my roommate. And funny enough, he and I hated each other when we first met because we both played on the Windsor soccer team.
Yeah.
And we were both goalkeepers.
Okay.
And we were both in the first year. And so we were both competing for the same position. And then we were also in the same program. So we were competing in school. And we were also competing for girls, if I'm being honest. So we were competing on everything you can compete on. I still remember waking up a little bit earlier than him so I could hit the gym before he does. And him doing the same thing. And so we hated each other for the first 4 months. And then as soon as the soccer season ended, we became best friends. And now we still are till this day.
That's a good story about how we shouldn't view each other as competitors.
You miss out on so many relationships doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like dentistry is okay in that space. It is competitive, but on other walks of life, everyone's so competitive with each other.
Yeah.
When you're there's unlimited everything for everyone. We live in such an abundant place, but it's hard to think that way.
Speaking of abundance, how did you get into money?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I got into money, one, growing up, it was very rough. Financially, obviously, you have the one parent who's sole income earner, but then on top of that, my mom suffered from a disability when I was 9, so she hasn't worked pretty much my entire life. So you not only have the one income, that income was lost. So I grew up on government-supported disability, which is CPP, and I believe at the time it might have been $1,500 a month. So to raise a family of 3 in BC on $1,500 a month, from a young age, I knew we were poor. And I was very aware of that. And my entire life, I always wanted to know, how do I make more money? I was obsessed with money from being a kid. But I'm lucky that as I got older, it became less of a Gordon Gekko, Wolf of Wall Street obsession with money, of a more of an obsession in the sense that, this one thing affects everyone's life. Mm-hmm. Everyone's constantly thinking about money, whether they want to say it or not. Everyone's thinking about money all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because now I get to actually solve that problem for people. But how I got into it was after I was at Windsor, I was playing soccer there. I spent a year there and I realized okay, I'm not going professional. It's not happening. I won't be. Yeah, I know. It's quite humbling. They're okay, I'm not going to be a professional player. I'm not good enough. And then I came home because I was okay, if I'm not going to play soccer, I might as well get started on my career. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a mentor He's actually that gentleman who paid for like my entire schooling, my undergrad and everything. I was lucky enough to get, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. And this scholarship is like a private foundation where pretty much just like really wealthy people will donate for the tax write-off.
Yeah.
I know that now in hindsight that you get a really big tax receipt when you make a donation, but it's still, they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. So he was lucky enough, I was lucky enough to get one of these scholarships. So he paid for my schooling. And the nice thing about that foundation, it's called the Smolik Foundation. You still stay in touch with the person who paid for your schooling and the one who's your mentor, and you get really a network of people, which is, in my opinion, more important than the money.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky enough to get that scholarship. And then when I was talking to him about what I want to do, I knew I wanted to go into business of some sort. I just wasn't sure how or what. And then he actually connected me with his advisor who was managing his money. And then I met this gentleman and I thought he was like the coolest guy in the world. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I remember seeing him at it's a place called Terminal City Club.
Yeah.
It's a really nice like country club pretty much, but in the heart of Vancouver. And I went to meet him and he said, you have to meet me at 6 a.m. It was like a Wednesday or something. I'm pretty sure I skipped school to go see him. And yeah, it was very early in the morning. And when I get there, he said, we'll have breakfast, I think at 7. It might have been something like that, 7 or something like that. But I ended up getting there about 30 minutes before I was supposed to really see him because I wanted to be early and punctual. And I get there and when I said, oh, I'm here to meet so-and-so, they said he's just gone for his morning swim. And I was like, what? Oh, a what? A morning swim? I was like, who is this guy? I was like, this guy must be Batman. Who goes for a morning swim? And yeah, he was just like the nicest guy ever. He was wearing a really nice watch. He was extremely successful. And to me as a kid from the outside looking in, I viewed it as, oh, I could take care of my mom doing this. That was like the number one thing. Yeah. That's why I wanted money. I'm wearing a Timex watch right now for everyone listening. I live off of very little. I don't need much. Yeah. But the goal has always been, how do I take care of my mom? And then once she's taken care of, how do I take care of people who were like me growing up? How do I take care of those people? And I viewed it as, okay, I could take care of my mom doing this. I could definitely do this. And so I got into finance that way. And then he pretty much was my mentor. Even till now, he would tell me what education to do, what courses to take, what positions to go and get at the bank. And I would just go and do them. And then eventually when I graduated from UBC is when I decided, you know, I actually don't want to work at the bank. And I started my own business, and because I wanted to be able to do things my way, treat my clients the same way. It's the same reason why someone would get a clinic, is you want to do your treatment your way and really run your clinic your way. And that's what I did with my business. So that's what got me into money, was being long-winded answer, which was not having much of it growing up, wanting it, and then eventually having it and being like, okay, now I know how to manage this and how do I help people? And really that's what it's turned into.
I love that story, that you have a mentor, someone who supported you, that you had the motivation to look after your mom, and now you have a motivation to help others.
Yeah. And it's really just because, well, for me, I view it as money is like the root of most people's stress. It's not evil. It's a very beautiful thing. When it's used the right way, it's just a tool, and you could use a tool however you want to. And so I view it as, okay, if you're worried about this as a client or whatever, this is just my way of being helpful to you and making sure that you don't have to worry about this, and you can worry about the things, you know, that are important to you, your children, your family, your clinic, your patients, whatever it is. And so, yeah, that's really why I'm so obsessed with it now, is it's just a means to help other people. Yeah.
And thank goodness you did. Now, thank goodness you chose dentist to help. How did you get into that?
I actually sort of just like fell into the niche, I'll be honest. I never like chose it. It wasn't a conscious choice until very recently. When I left the bank, I was helping anyone and everyone. You know, you're just starting your business. I was pretty much friends and family. Anyone that I could meet with, I would help. And then eventually I had one dentist client I could actually trace back to exactly who it was. She referred me to another one, who referred me to another one, who referred me to another. And then what happened is those people that I was referred to started referring as well. But it wasn't just dentists. I had a couple clients that were physicians, optometrists. And before I knew it, my book of clients, I think heading into the pandemic, was like 80% healthcare, or maybe 70% healthcare. So a big majority of these clients were already in healthcare, but I was always scared to niche down into just working with healthcare professionals. But because of COVID, because everything was online, I was like, oh, like I could actually do this now. I don't need a brick and mortar location in every single province. Everything's on Zoom.
Yeah.
And so that's when I launched White Coat Financial, which the idea was if you wear a white coat traditionally, we'll be able to help you, whether you're a physician, a dentist, an optometrist. And that's what we did from 2020 till 2023. And then 2023, I was looking at my clients again, and I was like, okay, of the 80% or so that I started out with, which were in healthcare, it's like 80% now are dentists. And so I was like, you know what? I might as well narrow down who I work with and be that much better in my advice and understand the profession and the person that much better. And I felt comfortable doing it because I had such a big book of existing dentists, because it's all been word of mouth now. And I think we spoke about this offline.
Dentists are the coolest, right?
They really are. I don't care what anyone says. I love dentists. I get along with them well. All of my clients genuinely are my friends. Like we were just talking offline.
Yeah.
I just spent 2.5 hours at a lunch with one of my clients, and we didn't talk about work. We didn't talk about money. We talked about dentistry. We literally just talked about dentistry for 2.5 hours and what he wants to do with his life and really where he sees things going. And I've just found I get along with dentists better. Of course, there's a lot of personalities. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but there's just so many wonderful people in this community. People who care about others, people who are entrepreneurial, people who are driven. I find dentists generally to me are people who are striving for excellence in a lot of aspects of their life, because your work requires it. It's so detailed. And one little mistake means someone's in pain versus not. It is so technical and precise. And I found that, not to paint with a broad brush, that attitude leaks into other areas of your life. And so every dentist I've ever met, I've gotten along with so well. And so I really do love working with dentists because they're just fun people to be with.
Hey, did you hear that, everyone? How could anyone say they hate going to the dentist? Gurtej loves dentists.
Honestly, I don't know why people don't like coming to see you guys. Like, if it didn't hurt your production, I would just show up at the dentist's office like once a week and be like, hey, I don't need anything done, but let's just hang out.
Yeah, you can come by to my office. Over.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep my mouth closed so then we can actually talk. There's so many funny memes of like going to the dental office and they'll ask you a question and they tell you to open your mouth and it's like, how am I supposed to respond?
And we'll probably love it. We can just keep talking and you can't respond and say anything.
It's beautiful. Yeah. That's like me.
So.
Yeah, that's like me. I'll just keep talking if you let me. Oh, man.
Now, Gurtej, when I first graduated, like you said, finances is really stressful. That's all I thought about, to the point where I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike to work so I can save money on car and gas so I can put it towards my debt. I was just thinking about my debt, had trouble sleeping. Is paying off your debt the best answer for a new dentist? Or should we be putting our money elsewhere?
I would say in today's environment,
Yeah.
yes, paying it off, because the interest rates are very high right now.
Yeah.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, when interest rates were rock bottom, we were, having conversations with dentists and saying, okay, maybe we don't pay off your debt right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the financially smart thing to do would be putting this into some sort of investment. Mm-hmm. That was the conversation during the pandemic. But today it's completely different. The smartest thing I feel is paying off your debt, not just financially, just even emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
Paying that debt, it closes a chapter on your life of no longer being a student. And it's a great feeling when you pay it off. But very often we have to weigh out the pros and cons of, is this the smartest thing on paper to do? And if it is, then we'll factor in the emotional side of it as well, of is it worth paying it off? Because you'll sleep better at night, your relationship will be better. Maybe, with a lot of, the reason I like paying off that professional student line of credit, not so much the student loans.
Oh, okay.
Those we usually drag out. We'll pay those over time. It's that professional student line of credit that we really focus on paying off first, because it's usually $300,000 right when you graduate. In modern times. And what happens is when you pay it down, you accomplish really 3 things. You're paying down debt, but you're also, because it's a line of credit, you can borrow back from it if you have an emergency.
Oh, okay.
Right? Your car breaks down, something happens. If you need cash quickly, well, you could just pull it from your line of credit again. And then third is that most dentists that I speak with eventually want to buy a home or things of that nature. The higher your debts are, the harder it is to qualify for a mortgage, especially in BC and Ontario. That's one of the biggest hurdles, is buying a house, and it's so expensive. It's hard to qualify for a mortgage. And so paying it down really accomplishes 3 things by doing one thing. And it usually leads to the most happiness outside of that. I feel having $100,000 in your RSPs and TFSAs doesn't feel as good as having no line of credit, emotionally.
It's
and
true.
So that's, I am telling a lot of new dentists, pay off that line of credit as fast as you can. The only thing now is we have to weigh out the trade-off between, do I pay this thing down and pay a lot of tax?
Yeah.
Or do I set up a corporation, shelter some cash in my corporation, and slowly pay down my debt? And the trade-off becomes, do I want to pay tax or do I want to pay interest? You're going to have to pick one.
Yeah, it's
You're
true.
going to have to pay it. Yeah.
So speaking of corporations, should associates or practice owners be at a certain level before they incorporate?
Yeah. I think very commonly we've always a lot of people have heard, oh, you shouldn't incorporate till you make $150,000 a year or $200,000 a year, or whatever the case is. I think that's not a good way of looking at it. You should set up a corporation when you're making far more than you personally need to spend.
Okay.
And that number can be different for everyone.
Yeah.
I have dentists who could live off of $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then I have others who are like, that's just my car payments for the year. Right?
Yeah.
So there's such a variation between lifestyle. And so really, whether you incorporate or not should be based on your lifestyle. How expensive is it for you to live your life? And what I calculate is what I call the baseline number of like, okay, what does it cost you to put food on the table,
Yeah.
a roof over your head, and get to and from work?
Yeah.
Comfortably, what does it cost you to live your life? If that's $5,000 and you're making $20,000 a month, then absolutely we should be incorporating. But if your baseline number is $12,000 and you're making 15,
Yeah.
we should not be incorporating
Okay.
because there's not enough money left on the table for you to actually incorporate. The whole point of a corporation is to shelter income that you don't need to spend inside your corporation, so it's taxed at a lower rate rather than you paying that tax personally. That's really the whole point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned the different lifestyles. So what do you tell your clients who are like, I'm getting a Rolex, I'm getting a Mercedes, I'm going to be traveling, and yet they still have student debt?
I'm going to take a page from Dr. Freeman, Dr. Bruce Freeman, and he's told me a lot. And it's not even him who came up with the idea, but he's the one who told me about it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who he was talking about, so I'm just going to say it was Dr. Bruce Freeman who came up with it. And he talked about miswanting, and I think another like idea that I'd like to throw in here is the arrival fallacy.
Okay.
Of like, you think you're happy when, or miswanting is I'll be happy when I have a Rolex, or that Rolex is going to make me feel better about who I am as a person. It's going to portray to society that I'm successful. And then you get it and you're like, oh, I'm still unhappy, or I'm still, it didn't change anything about how I feel about myself. And so I feel like for young dentists, I almost feel like you have to go through it to understand it. We've all been there, even myself. You have a certain idea or goal in your head, and you think, when I hit that goal, life will be great.
Yeah.
And you hit it, and you're like, oh, nothing's changed. Or that that number in your bank account. I still remember like refreshing my TD Bank thing one day to see, like, wait for a certain number.
Yeah.
And I hit it. I was like, my life still sucks. Nothing's changed. It's not magically better. And so I think for like my advice, going back to your question, is if you can avoid a lot of those really expensive things in life early in your career, it's a really smart financial thing to do. And the lower you can keep your costs early in your career, the better. Because what happens is humans generally want progress. That's what all of us want above all other things, is forward momentum. And it's really hard to upgrade once you buy that Rolex and you buy a Mercedes-Benz. If you get a Mercedes-Benz fresh out of school, the next car, what are you gonna progress to?
Exactly.
It's really hard. And now you end up in a loop where you're in your 40s or 50s, and your next car has to be a Ferrari because you've been driving Mercedes-Benzes for the last 20 years, and you end up in this cycle. Whereas if you can keep your expenses low, you drive a Honda Civic or Toyota Corolla early in your life, and then you upgrade when you're in a financially sound position to make that upgrade, you're not just going to feel happier. Like, it's a financially smarter decision, but you're probably going to be happier because that progress has come. It's that delayed gratification. Yeah. And I get it. If you're a dentist, you've delayed gratification for so long. You finished dental school, general dentistry, 26 these days?
Yeah.
Right? You're 26 years old. Your friends have gotten jobs in tech. They're making $200,000 a year. They have a nice car. Some of them might even have a house. And you've delayed gratification for so long that you're like, oh, F it. I'm going to go and spend the money. I'm going to go buy that purse or that watch or whatever. And I would say it's not a bad thing to buy those things. We just need to make sure your base is set, that you're foundationally sound. You don't want to be the guy who has a Rolex, but then also has no money in his bank account. That's not a good position to be in, because then you're not even going to feel like you deserved it. Yeah. So I really say, if you can, as a new grad, pay down your debt, live within your means, keep your expenses low, it's not just going to set you up financially, but happiness-wise, stress-wise, you'll be better off. Yeah. And so that's kind of my advice to new grads. But I also get it. If you're fresh out of school, I actually say first paycheck, do whatever you want. Go get a Rolex, go get a nice bag, spend that vacation. My only rule is don't buy something with a payment attached to it.
Okay.
So if you are going to go, even if it's, you know, a crazy weekend in Vegas, go do it.
Yeah.
Next paycheck, we'll think about how to allocate it.
Oh, good. I didn't know about delayed gratification. I'm still delaying. I'm still driving used Hyundais. I didn't know that I can step up now that I'm 50.
Yeah, Sanj, I think you've taken it too far with the delayed gratification. Yeah, I think you do need to treat yourself at a certain point.
Thanks, Gurtej. Thanks for that permission.
Yeah, I think it's, but if you want it, there's no point in driving a really fancy car if you don't care about the car.
Yeah.
Like me, I don't even know how to change oil on a car. Someone asked me like the other day, like, what cylinder is your car? I was like, I have no idea, dude. I don't know anything. So for me to buy a nice car would only be for other people.
That's true.
But if you're someone who really likes cars, then absolutely go get a nice car because you know everything about it. You understand the vehicle. You're a really big fan of the car, whatever. My rule of thumb with buying nice things, because my clients always buy nice things.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to coach them on what they should and shouldn't buy. I'm not their dad. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. Yeah. I'm here to purely give you the sound financial advice of what are the outcomes of allocating your money in a certain way. If you invest it here versus buying something. But what I always say when you are making a big purchase is, would you still buy it if you couldn't post it? Would you still buy it if no one knew about it?
Yeah.
If I wanted a Mercedes-Benz solely because I understand that that car is superior to other cars, then yes.
Yeah.
But if I'm buying it solely because I know it's better than my friend's car and he's going to think I'm really successful because of it, it's not usually a good purchase because you're not going to feel any better once you
That's a really good way of putting it.
Can I not post it? What if no one knew I had this thing?
Yeah.
Would I still buy it? Would I still go on that trip if I couldn't post it? And I find that usually answers the question.
Oh, that's great advice, Gurtej. Now, what are some of the mistakes you see new dentists making with their money?
Yeah, I would say it's that. It's the lifestyle inflation very early.
Okay.
And again, I'm not here saying that you're a bad person or you're stupid if you did something like that. I get it. I've been there myself, where you buy something that was really nice. Like I still remember I bought like a custom made suit one time.
Oh,
and it was like
bespoke.
Yeah, it was like a bespoke suit. Biggest waste of money ever. Not because of the person buying it.
Yeah.
But I was also like probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier when I bought that. And I realized by just like losing the weight, I feel a lot better in a regular suit. The suit isn't going to make me skinnier.
Yeah.
It's not going to make me healthier. It's not going to make me look any better.
Yeah.
I look kind of lumpy in a nice bespoke suit. And so if I just focused on being in a healthier spot, the suit almost became irrelevant to an extent.
Okay.
So I don't want to like judge and say you shouldn't buy nice things. You absolutely should. But going back to your question of what's the biggest mistake, I think it's that lifestyle inflation early. The next one is actually not the dentist's fault. It is more an advisor fault.
Oh.
I find too many clients early in their career will have insurances that just aren't good for them. Like life insurance specifically.
Really?
You usually don't need specific types of insurance early in your career. There's like products called whole life and universal life insurance, and every dentist I come across usually has been pitched it or has this. It's not a bad product. It's just poorly diagnosed. It's a product that is generally designed for someone who has like one of two issues. Someone who's really like wealthy and older who wants to pay taxes for their children when they pass away.
Okay.
I don't know any new dentists who have that problem.
Exactly.
They don't have children.
You're right.
They're not old. They're not wealthy. And I don't think they're worried about paying taxes for their kids. Nor are they thinking about that at 26, 27, 28. But they usually get put into that product very early because the commissions are very high on it. The second type of person who gets a whole life insurance policy is usually someone who's making far more than they need to spend. And they've maxed out their RSP. They've maxed out their TFSA. They've maxed out all of their tax sheltered investments. And now they're like, oh, I've maxed out everything and I still have money. Where do I now put it to shelter taxes? That's when the second time people start buying whole life insurance or universal life insurance. No one has those problems coming out of school. But so many dentists will get pitched that product very early because they're told this is how the top 1% invest their money. And that is absolutely true. But they didn't become the top 1% by investing their money that way. They stay the top 1% by investing their money that way. With that same like logic, that means I should eat how LeBron James eats because he's a top 1% athlete. He probably eats 10,000 calories
Great
a day.
analogy, yeah.
He eats, 10,000 calories a day? If I ate 10,000 calories a day, I'd be lumpy again.
You fit into your suit.
I'd fit in. Yeah, and pretty much. I'd expand that suit even. And so it's not good advice, I feel like. And that's a mistake that a lot of young dentists make, and it's not their fault. They're just usually poorly educated on it. The second mistake, I think, is actually incorporating too early for a lot of people. You don't need to incorporate your first day out of school because we should probably pay down some of your debt. Then the year after that, we'll use your RSP, we'll use your FHSA, we'll use your student tuition credits. Because when you finish school, your first year is not a full first year. It's 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, depending on when you land that associateship or the right one. And so you don't need to incorporate that year. You're not making that much money. And you'll have student tuition credits that'll wipe that out. The next year is your first full year, but then now we can use an RSP, we can use an FHSA, we can use your student tuition credits. And so maybe you don't need to incorporate right away. Now, mind you, a lot of people do still. They still need to incorporate right away, but a lot of people don't. And I feel like those are like the first big 3 mistakes coming out of school. The next one is leveraging a house that's too big for them. Yes, houses and real estate are assets, but that doesn't mean you need to go and buy the most biggest lavish house. As like we do mortgages at Whitecoat, and like we do everything, but mortgages, insurance, investments, etc. But with mortgages, I could tell you right now, because we're a broker, we're able to work with any bank we want, RBC, TD, Scotia, whoever. I can get you approved for whatever mortgage you want as a dentist. That's not the concern. Is it a sound financial decision to go and get a $2 million house right out of school? Like right now I have a file where the client has enough of a down payment to buy a $2 million property. And then I ran the numbers. I was like, why don't you just buy something for like 1.2? Because there's only you're not married yet. You don't have a child. And I get that you're buying this house because of certain reasons, but you don't need a house that's this big. And we can upsize in the future if we need to. Because no one's talking to her about what that payment's going to be. If that mortgage payment is now set $6,000 instead of $8,000, as a dentist, it's not a $2,000 difference. It's really like a $4,000 difference when you factor in taxes.
You're right.
And so it might seem like a small difference day to day, but the taxation's there as well that you really have to manage. So I think like those are, if I was, again, I'm very long-winded in my answers. If I was to bring it back down to like a simple version is lifestyle inflation up front. Don't go and buy things that are like overly expensive that you cannot afford. You don't need really expensive life insurance out the gate. You're usually single as well, so probably don't need it at all. The next one is, don't incorporate too early. Think about the decision of paying off debt versus incorporating. Do you want to pay taxes or interest? Pick one. And the other one is when you can buy a house, maybe you don't need to swing for the fences. You don't need your forever home. You don't need your dream home that's on your vision board. You need a place to live at the start. And then we can scale up, because the people who actually have money left over are the ones who are the most successful financially. So let's try to make sure you have some money left over.
Great answers. I like how you summarized it all up at the end. Now, young dentists are like, I want to pay off my debt. I want to get a house, maybe get a practice, but I'm so focused on my debt. I don't think I'll ever get a home. I don't think I'll ever buy a practice. So what advice do you give to them who've just closed those doors because they find it's too expensive?
It's funny. So we have the two sides of the spectrum. Again, there's lots of people in the middle, but there's like a lot of clients who are like, oh, I can buy a $6 million practice fresh out of school. And I'm like, you don't even know how to do dentistry yet. Like, yes, you finished dental school, but you know about 30% of what you should know, and you'll learn a lot. And so there's some people who swing for the fences and they think they can qualify for anything. And then we have other people, maybe like you, who just think like, oh, it's too far. I don't want to do it. It's too much stress. I'm just going to like focus on like doing the simple things. And so with the clients who say, okay, home ownership's out of the books or clinic ownership is out of the books, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's very doable to buy a house as a dentist. The struggle is the down payment. The mortgage I'll get you qualified for. We need to make sure that you have the minimum down payment. And in BC and Ontario, that's difficult to do. Like, a condo in like, I don't know, in Delta where I'm from is like $600,000 minimum. Minimum down payment on that is like $35,000, which isn't hard to do, but then now you have to qualify for the other mortgage while you still have a line of credit. So that's a little bit of the difficult part, but I would say it's very doable to buy a home. The thing is, what type of home? Are you trying to buy a $2 million, mansion? Or can you just get away with a condo as your starter home? And then you lever up over the years. You grow as your family and your situation grows. Clinic ownership, on the other hand, technically you don't have to save for it at all. If you want to buy a clinic, we will be able to get you 100% financing on whatever you want to buy. And when I say whatever, like we have clients buying $5 million clinics, plus the unit that the clinic's in, that's another $2 million or $3 million that the clinic's in. It's an $8 million mortgage out the gate, and they have their own mortgage and they have a line of credit and they put $0 down. We will get you the financing as a dentist for whatever you want to buy, which is a double-edged sword. because sometimes you shouldn't be levered up that high.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea. But for clinic ownership, yeah, coming back to that, it's 0% down, so you're able to buy whatever you want.
Yeah.
It just comes down to a question of, does it fit my personal lifestyle? Very, like right now I'm working and I'm actually helping a client negotiate the sale price and looking at the appraisal and really doing all of that process for him. The first thing we did was check, can you withstand the payment personally if you're not profitable from day one? How much extra leeway do you have in your personal budget? What does it cost you to live your life? Once we realized, okay, he's in a personal position where it's good, he can withstand some more payments or a decrease in his income, then we said, okay, now let's look at the clinic. What would the payments be on that clinic? What would they be during the grace period? What would they be once the actual full payment kicks in? What is the production currently? What would the production be when you take over? And so all of those factors get considered before you buy a clinic, because the down payment's not the hard part. It's the decision is, can I take over this clinic? Will I be profitable right away? Can I make the payments on that loan that I just took out to buy the clinic? And then long term, is it profitable enough to beat being an associate?
Yeah.
Because I have associates who are producing $1 million a year. And they're taking home what, 400, 450 of that?
40%.
Right? And I'm like, okay, your profit, because you just go into your job and you leave.
Yes.
That's it. To me, that's profit, right?
Yes.
Your profit is 450 grand. Whereas as a clinic owner, how many clinic owners are pulling in 450 grand, right? After they pay everyone and then themselves. So then we have that question of, okay, is it worth being an associate? Is it worth owning? So there's a lot of factors that go into it, which is why I tell my clients, you just got to tell me what your goals are, what you want out of life.
Yeah.
I'll run the numbers, and then you and your family get to talk about whether you want to take action on those numbers or not. How does that actually affect you guys as a couple, as a family? Yeah.
I think part of the thing is, as dentists, we feel like, well, we're dentists, we're doctors. We should have the big house, the nice car. You know, we should have a better lifestyle than our friend who did like a 2-year college program, but it doesn't work out. Like, as a dentist, you should be able to sleep at night. That should be your main goal.
I'll say
no stress about your finances.
You do deserve those things. Yes,
Yeah.
I will fully say yes, you deserve the nicer vacations. You maybe shouldn't be flying economy, especially if you're like a taller dude and you're like, I can't fit in the seats. That's right. So it's like, you do deserve those things because you put in the work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But in due time, I think the biggest luxury in life is being able to sleep really well and peace. Those are luxuries, not the nice car, the nice house, the nice watch, the nice whatever. And so peace is the most valuable luxury, and it is really the, as the younger kids would say, the flex. If you're peaceful, if you don't have to show up to work, if you're not worried about money, that's a bigger flex than anything else. The wealthiest clients I have, when we're doing retirement planning, quote unquote, if anyone can see a retirement planning with air quotes, they can retire. That's not the question. It's, do I want to still work? What do I want to give to my kids? What do I want to give to society? That's the flex. It's the freedom of what money buys you, not the actual money and the things. Because I have clients who also have the nicest cars and the nicest watches and the nicest house and they go on the nicest vacation, but they have to produce $1 million every year. They have to drill and fill like crazy. They have to produce that much. And if their clinic stops producing that much or the patient flow slows down, they're stressed. Who lives a better life at that point? The one who doesn't have to worry about money, or the person who has the nicer lifestyle and actually has to worry about, okay, where's my next paycheck coming from? And so the real flex is in not having to work, not having to worry about
Wow,
money.
I love that.
Yeah.
We should make that like an axiom. The peace is the flex.
Peace is the flex. I was talking to the gentleman before this, and I said, like, I live my life today to maximize peace and reduce regret. Those are my two, like, sort of areas that I focus on. Is this decision going to bring more peace to my life? And is it going to reduce some of the regret that I would have as an old man? If I can get sort of those two things dialed in on all my decisions, to me, I'm like happy with that. Peace is the most important thing. Financial stress is like the worst stress. It's like tooth pain.
That's true.
We've all had other pain, but if your teeth hurt, it is brutal. It's a different type of pain. I think financial stress is like that. You can be stressed because of exams. You can be stressed because your relationship's not going well. You could be stressed because your parents are getting older and you're worried about them. I feel like financial stress, though, is one of the top stresses. It feels different, and it ages you. It does things to you. It makes you a bad person. It makes you meaner. It makes you think short-sighted. It makes you want to not do the right thing for other people for your own gain. I think only financial stress does that. And so if you can get rid of that, how much better would your life be?
You're right.
You know?
I have a new name for your Instagram account because you said at the start, you're going to change from Mr. Money Canada, Mr. Peace.
Mr. Peace. Mr. Peace. Everyone's like, what is this? Is this guy a Buddhist? What is this? Yeah.
So Gurtej, that was fantastic advice you gave us. Now, how can people contact you? Do you have any courses coming up where we can learn more?
Best way, I feel like, is Instagram. I have like a LinkedIn page, a Facebook, and a TikTok. I think it should be Mr. Canada on all of them. But Instagram's the only one that I'm actually signed into.
Okay.
It's the only one I actually look at.
You're the same as me.
Yeah, the other ones, there's too much. Honestly, TikTok's just like a bad place. I don't like it. It's like my algorithm's just like mean to me. It's like, you're not doing enough. You should have 13 side hustles and this. And it's like, no, what are you talking about? So Instagram's the best place, Mr. Money Canada. We actually, when this airs, podcast will be released. So Dr. Ricky Hamami and I are starting a podcast. It's going to be called the Dental Journeys Podcast.
Oh, I can't wait to listen.
So that'll be out by the time this airs. I feel like those are like the main two places.
And
there's
other Financial.
And yes, obviously the company White Coat Financial, but you could just visit the website or honestly through the Instagram, you can reach out. And then course-wise, it'll be done. I'm doing a seminar 2 days from now for dentists here in North York, but I'll be doing more in the future. I think I'll make them webinar style in the future because
having reach.
It's just better reach, and not everyone can make it. And I think people would prefer to talk about this stuff or watch things about money in their pajamas. It's just better.
Exactly. Everything's better in your pajamas.
My whole business model is centered around pajamas. We don't have an office. We do everything online because pajamas are just better. Yeah.
And I love how you changed the White Coat Financial logo to make the W into a molar. So keep flexing, Gurtej. Thanks so much for your time on the pod.
No, thanks for having me. This was a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Yeah. That was perfect.
Thank you for listening to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, watch us on YouTube, share and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram @New Dentist Study Club.